Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Three Geeks conversation. We are joined by royalty today, Patricia Summersett. Patricia, the voice of Princess Zelda. How are you doing today?
I am fine. Hi, Jason. Nice to meet you all and shoot the shoot. I was like, I can't say that. I'm not gonna say that. Yeah.
My question I really like to ask people, because I'm genuinely curious, is what was the journey that got you into voice acting and acting in general?
Yeah. I bet you get a big variety of answers there with different actors for sure. Mine actually started. So I grew up in Upper Michigan, and I have three sisters. We all did a lot of sort of singing and dancing when we were younger, a lot of playing in the woods. I attribute that actually to having I use nature a lot in terms of inspiration for my work, Lake Superior and the sort of places that I used to play in the woods as a child. But also we had some practice singing and dancing. We were supported in that. So I'd say my journey kind of started there. We would perform in the local jamborees. Back when I went to church, back when I was very young, we'd perform in church. And then eventually I started ice skating. And so I was doing a lot of training and performing in that regard when I was about sort of 6 to like 13 years old. I was pretty intense into it. That's a very performative thing as well. And then the theater started when I was like 17 or 18, like, sort of junior, senior in high school, where I realized that you could do that too. I'd switched high schools to a slightly bigger high school, and I was like, oh, this one actually has a kind of theater troupe. And so instantly I was attracted to all the stuff that I initially skated to, the music that Fiddler on the Roof and these Broadway shows. I knew the music of everything, and then I was actually seeing the shows themselves. So I started to participate in and then I'd say professionally, where acting started for me and where voice acting really came into play was in university, when I was going to Concordia University in Montreal for my undergrad. Figure skating, I had done that professionally, but it had sort of it'd fallen to the wayside. Political things, paperwork, stuff like that. I'd moved to Canada, and it didn't work out for me to continue at a national level there. But I found theater back. I got back to theater, was super excited about it, and then learned about voice acting in video games while I was at theater school. There was a class that I took, and one of my teachers had worked in video games and done his work, and I was totally riveted. So I started to pursue those both at the same time, around the age of like kind of 21, 22. And I kind of never looked back. I knew if I wanted to make a career out of it, I would have to just kind of say yes to a lot of different things and diversify. That was the advice that I'd been given. So I was like, well, voice acting is definitely going to be, in that territory for me, because I love transforming my voice and just being on a microphone. It was something that made a lot of sense. Yeah, it's a very different road now for people, because that's actually a viable career path for people training for it. But back when I was doing it, it was pretty new. It was less known, unless you're like right in the hub of LA with animation, or, in Texas for anime, and you're online, which we didn't have. We didn't have social media at that time. So it was all just kind of, you're in your little bubble going from there. But yeah, so that was, I've been doing this for like 20 years, and it's been a journey. Yeah.
Would you say that your background in kind of like music and ice skating and stuff helped contribute to like your kind of breaking in?
Absolutely. I think they're very directly correlated. I definitely had the desire to train for things, because I was, I've skipped over the ice dancing a bit. I mean, that really was a major part of my journey. I was a competitive ice dancer for some years, which actually brought me to Canada. And there was something about, like with that sort of form of performance, you're training very, very hard. You're waking up at 4:30 a.m. and you're going to the rink, and then you're going to school, and then you're working, and then you're coming back, and you're sort of wash, rinse, repeat, that kind of thing. And you only might have a few performances in the year, but you're training a lot for that, sort of those big performances. So there's a lot of process involved in the training. That's actually what I really liked about it. So when I got into theater, and you get into places like reading scripts, analyzing scripts, going into them, breaking them down and having to train at them. That was something that I knew that it really spoke to me as a kind of daily thing. And yeah, I think for things like performance capture, when you get into video game work in that way, you've probably heard this, I'm sure, but it is really like a black box theater. It's the kind of thing where you're imagining all around you. If you have physical skills, you end up using them. In fact, I mean, aside from the character work that I've done, I've also done like roller skating work on motion capture. That is just, you sort of just use your figure skating skills where you do, you use voice skills where you do, you kind of use whatever you can, and that sort of brings the career path to where the trajectory to where it's going to go. But yeah, if you like things somatically, I feel like whatever you have brought to it, you're going to end up kind of using that in your acting career.
So what was I don't know if you remember your first one, but what was like the auditioning process leading up to booking your first gig?
By first gig, do you mean voiceover, video games, theater, or what do you think? What would you prefer to hear? Because I could remember them all pretty well, I guess.
whatever you want to share. Either one's fine. I like the journey.
Maybe a little bit of all of them. That kind of gives us a variation of the differences in the preparation for all of those.
Yeah, that's a great point. For theater, I landed my first roles in high school, which is when I realized that I could, because I'm not a musical theater person. I do sing, I have a band, I've released music, but I'm not a musical theater belter. I don't do that kind of work. I use a lot of voice work, but not like that. That's like a different kind of skill. I watched, the first roles I landed were Cha-Cha in Grease and Lola in Damn Yankees. Those were the two performances. And I kind of knew, I was like, I think I'm going to get these because I have enough experience with dance. And also I would watch the movies and just imitate what they did. And I was like, okay, there's some accent work. This is how they move. And I just kind of physically took on the form and went in and landed those auditions and got them and thought, oh, I can do this, in high school. Getting into theater school was not so easy. I had to audition twice. I went in with maybe too much confidence and just completely flubbed the first time. And it led to a lot of disillusionment for a good year until I tried again. I tried Shakespeare and I didn't know what I was doing. And it was really bad. So I went back and I got some coaching on it. And then a year later, kind of went back in and had to sort of rein it in and learn to not do everything externally, but sort of go in more naturalistically because I'd done a lot of formal body training. So that was an interesting thing for Shakespeare and for theater. My first voiceover gig was when I was already in school, and it was like, I think it was a bath, like a spa commercial. And back then it was like, you have a little piece of paper, it's on the wall at the local sort of theater hub community space. You peel it, you take the number, you go, you audition, you take a bus somewhere, you audition for this thing. And then I got this thing and it was like Bain Ultra or something like that. And I was over the moon, and I drove 3 hours to go to do this gig in like some random part of Quebec. And I just sort of put on a voice, like, you kind of fake it till you make it. But it was like, live the Bain Ultra experience, something like that. And I was like, oh my God, I've made it. This is so cool. And then video games, a similar thing. It was like answering a casting call in my theater school on the wall. And I think it was like, I believe the company was called Gameloft, which still exists. They were doing a lot of indie games at the time. And I ended up getting in with them, and then they saw that I could sort of transform my voice, and so they give me a lot of small roles. So I started that way. It was several years before I got my first AAA game, which ended up being Beowulf, and that was while I was doing a voice demo, and the sound engineer passed on my demo to somebody, I believe it was Simon Peacock, somebody who's quite established in Canada now as a director, and he works for ACTRA Montreal and stuff like that. But they needed an Angelina Jolie sound-alike for the video game because she'd opted out. But that was after sort of being at it for several years. Yeah, and it's true because each form is very different when you're auditioning that way. Theater helps though. Theater helps all of those things, or any kind of acting training, which I always suggest to people when they're like, how do I get into voice acting? I'm like, acting, because voice acting these days can be anime, it can be performance capture, it can suddenly be you needing to have live skills to be online, in front of cameras. There's so many different facets of how you brand yourself and become a performer that acting training is really good for all of it in terms of like physical storytelling. So yeah, that's sort of, I feel like I'm just blabbing my brains out right now, but trying to think if there's anything else useful about that. Maybe first performance capture audition, which came significantly later than that. That was, I think, 2000, I want to say 6 or 7, was for Assassin's Creed. And this was after bugging Ubisoft for a while. I was like submitting demos, pitching demos to Ubisoft Montreal. And finally I got an audition. You go into a big mocap room, you have live cameras, and you do a sort of version of almost like a film acting audition. That's changed a lot now. These days, you actually go oftentimes into a casting house, or now you just submit remotely. But it is very much like film acting auditions, more and more for the performance capture. Before, it was a little more hybrid, where they wanted to see you like walk across a space a lot, and then do like a little bit close up, a lot far away. And nowadays, yeah, it's kind of different with every studio, but obviously the technology's boomed, and it's an entirely different universe at this point. But
were you a big gamer going into voice acting?
I was not a big gamer. No, I've definitely gamed a lot as a child, gamed in high school a bit, but I was more, no, it just wasn't it wasn't on my radar at that point. It was like, I was more, when I entered acting school, I had so much to catch up on. I was like a late bloomer already. And so I dove straight into theater, and I tried to learn what Shakespeare was and Chekhov and Ibsen. I went that route. There wasn't a lot of time for me in that regard. And I was also living with people that were not gamers as well. Had they been, that would have changed things. I was more interested in the acting work. I've come back around now, obviously, like I have a grand appreciation for a lot of different styles of games. And if I don't have time to play them, I try to watch cinematics and just sort of get the beat on what the game's about and what the play styles are and stuff like that. There's so much out there now, it's crazy. So no, I wasn't, but I was very familiar with the games that I had landed, like Zelda, for example. I had played that growing up, and I had a NES in the house and played a lot more Mario than Zelda. I was almost too young for the beginning Zeldas. They were way too hard for me when I was growing up.
Well, speaking of that, you are widely recognized for voicing Princess Zelda. What was your initial reaction when you got that role?
Destiny, it was crazy. My initial reaction was, I had just made a big move to LA from Montreal after doing my master's of classical acting in London. Got back, spent some time back in Montreal, Toronto, and then I made this big leap to go to LA to like perform in more voice. So I ended up getting this wonderful connection through my sister, who'd been there as a singer-songwriter, and she knew a casting director, and she submitted my materials, which were pretty strong by that point. It was enough to like get me in for that audition. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what I was auditioning for. It was just, it was a bleached script. So I just had no idea. I was like, It's a fantasy game. They have these like archetype characters. And I was like, I usually go out for the warrior, which ended up being Urbosa. So by that point, I was like, I probably have a better chance of landing this, if anything, but I'm going to try for a few different ones. And so I tried the sort of young princess character, which had a description of like weight of the world on her shoulders, kind of old beyond her years, even though she's like 19-ish, but it was like a bit fluid. And I was like, I was trying to figure out where it sat in my voice. Went in for that audition, got a call back, and then I felt like they were sort of directing me into the princess role a little more, like they were checking out my range, and I was like, ooh, I feel like I might land something. Oh, this sounds good. And then I found out I got a role, and I was like, oh my God, first role in LA. After acting for nearly 10 years, this has happened. I'm in the right place. And then when I finally went in to record the trailer, my first session, I signed the NDAs, and they're like, by the way, this is Zelda, and you are Princess Zelda. And I was just like, okay, that's a game changer. And
That's
yeah,
huge.
I felt like you have like an adrenaline rush that you can't quite repeat for much of anything else. It's so big, and then you're like, you feel like you're falling. And you don't, or flying, but falling too. And you don't want to hit the ground and get it wrong. So
Right.
yeah, it's very exciting. Very, very exciting.
Have you heard any of like the previous Zelda voice actors? Because there's like the cartoon and then those Philips games. Like, had you heard any of those prior to?
Not really.
playing the role?
I've heard like the the emotes that the Japanese version has done. But I've heard a lot since, because once you start doing conventions, people start kind of thrusting that at you, throwing it back at you, doing imitations of you and of that character. And I get a lot of like, well, excuse me, princess, like all the time. And so, yeah, I've kind of gone back into the voice aspect of that. I was pretty familiar, like once I booked the role, I went back in and I learned about the Hyrule Historia, and I started pouring through the material to see what I could use to support the interpretation of the character. But at one point, you just have to trust what they're giving you in the room, and you got to go with what the team wants, and you got to go with the script that's there. And obviously, it's a first interpretation of something and a new team, and they have a pretty set decision of what they're going to be going for, and like the kind of general essence and tone of it, which you've already been cast for. So you have to trust that. It's hard, but you do.
Yeah.
Oh, my microphone has hit my head. Boom. Okay.
So I'm curious, what was it like working on Star Trek Discovery?
Ooh, really exciting, like a big sort of checkbox there. I can say, I got it right at the tail end, and I think that part is so funny. Olatunde, the director, Onsu Sanmi, he is wonderful. Everybody was so delightful, but it was like a well-oiled ship by this point, because I came in for the literal series finale of everything. And by that point, I'd auditioned for that show twice before and been shortlisted. One of them I knew about, one of them I didn't, but I got really close to a different character in that series, I think the season before. And I was like, this might be like it was my last opportunity to get on that show. And then finally I did. And it involved me sort of flying to Toronto for costume fittings, coming back, more costume fittings, coming back, and then going, and then just basically having to learn the monologues and go straight into it on set pretty quickly. It was kind of high pressure, as those things are, in that full, huge armored costume. On a platform with the director and a bunch of cameras, and me just sort of like speaking to the void. That's what it was, because I was on set, and I was on the set of the ship around, like it was all shot in Toronto, but obviously I didn't get to act opposite Doug Jones during that. They sort of filled that in later. I've met him since. We met in New Zealand last year, and it was so lovely to meet him and be like, because he's a legend, man. He's extraordinary. So it was like, yeah, it was a dream come true. It was another one of those, like, how did I get myself into this situation? Now I'm on on the Enterprise or whatever, It's just really
It's funny because Star Trek Discovery, it's one of those rare shows, and I liked it from the beginning, but it's one of those rare shows that like halfway through the series, it gets exponentially better than it was in the beginning. Because, once they jump to the future, it's so good. I'm so glad you got to be a part of that.
Oh, thanks, Jason. Yeah, me too. Yeah, I hope there's still room for more Star Trek material as it comes. I've played a Breen. I wonder what else there is out there. It'd be really nice.
Are there any types of characters or genres or specific franchise that you would like to be part of in the future?
Honestly, anything with like Larian Studios right now would be really cool. They're all my friends and colleagues. I'm so happy for all the amazing things that's occurred for them. Watching like Jennifer English just win for Claire Obscure, and everybody's they're so much fun, and I would love to work with any of them in that regard too, like on a video game. But I'm actually also I'm working on a couple things right now that are really fun. They both involve performance capture, and they're sort of long processes. I don't know where they're going to land exactly when they come out. I expect maybe in the next year they'll both be suddenly they'll come out with their sort of first like, ta-da, this has been happening. But yeah, it's exciting, and they're new. One of them is a completely new IP, and that's really cool too, because it becomes very much about the people that you're working with, especially when it's performance capture and they're essentially writing the script as you're going, and you have a certain kind of input, and it helps shape where the character gets to go. Very different process from obviously performing and something iconic that there's a certain kind of sandbox that you play within, and you can't really stretch too much outside of that. You're sort of hoping to like nail it. Yeah, I don't know. I really like new IPs too, but I definitely like strong, complex, dark characters. And I think I've been pretty lucky with that so far. Anything that stretches me, honestly, at this point is like, I'm just happy to be working too. In this day and age in the industry, it's just really, really lovely to be working on anything with fun storytellers. I'm always just counting my blessings when that occurs. Truly.
So one of the shows that I really liked, and we interviewed a couple of the cast members, Three Pines. What was your experience on that? And are you hoping to do more like on-camera acting?
Yeah, you know what I'm actually hoping to do is probably get back to some theater as well. I'm probably going to be doing some writing this year and collaborating on that. That was my first love, and it bleeds right back into TV, film. All the screen, all the video games, but yeah, that kind of raw form of performance where you don't have too much technical stuff getting in the way. It's a different kind of, it's like such a strong muscle. It requires so much athleticism of the acting. So yeah, I have a feeling that I'm going to be visiting that. Three Pines was one of the most fun, beautiful shows I've ever worked on. Alfred Molina is like a dream to work with. My friend Sarah Booth was in that. She just killed it. There were so many actors on that who were just really, really awesome. And the director that I had worked with, primarily Sam Donovan, who went on to do a lot with Severance and these other shows, he is just the British team that came over that we worked with. They're the kind of team that is like infinitely nicer than you ever expect. They're the kind that come into a green room and change the garbage, for everybody. Like they're that kind of team. It's just, I kind of can't say enough about how awesome Three Pines was. Claire, the woman who swears a lot, the older actor who had the duck, she is actually just a kind of a legendary theater actor as well. So I've watched her on stage many times. So to get to sort of be on set with her a lot, well, there's so many people on set that were amazing, but she was, she's just like a delight. So that's another one of those things where like the ensemble is just to be there in the room with the ensemble. You're taking it in, you're learning. Yeah, it's a wonderful show. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. I wish it had another season. Yeah,
me
too
too.
bad as it goes, right? But
I probably am the biggest theater geek out of all of us. I've done theater, musical theater. Do you have a favorite show or a favorite role that you've played?
Ooh, that's a great question. Funny enough, I haven't played a lot of Chekhov. I've only done scenes, but Chekhov is one of my favorite playwrights, hands down. Granted, it depends on the adaptation, the translation, but I find some of the best stuff I've ever seen performed. I think, is it Andrew Scott's got a version of Uncle Vanya, or it's called Vanya, where he does a one-man show and he does all the parts. Highly recommend watching that. He's incredible. So Chekhov, I do love the classics, Ibsen, Pinter, Shakespeare. Probably one of my favorite roles I've played, and one of the most complicated roles I've played, was Hedda Gabler. That was a very challenging role. That's an old Ibsen play, but it was a contemporary adaptation, and I sort of wish that I could go back in my life and play that role again, now that I'm actually the age that she would be, because I was kind of too young to fully grasp perhaps what I could have done with it now. I could go so much further in now. So yeah, but yeah, I don't know. What's your favorite? I'm curious what your favorite is. Saying
Well,
that you've got.
That one's hard. I do a lot more
Get that.
musical theater. So
Mhm.
Rent is probably my favorite.
Oh, mhm.
It's always been one of my favorites. And I'd go with Wicked for one I haven't done that I would love to do. Elphaba is like an absolute dream role.
Yeah, yeah. It's incredible what they've done with Wicked, and I mean how sort
It
of
is.
big it's blown up now, and I mean just the talent on that film. Both Ariana
Definitely.
Grande and Cynthia Erivo. Cynthia Erivo studies Estel training for voice, which is I do too, and I've been sort of learning. Well, just even more so, her mastery is not to be argued with. But I'm like, she just goes so beyond any form that you can possibly try to master. You're just like,
Yeah.
man.
They
Not
both had
there.
such big shoes to follow in
Oh,
too,
yeah.
and they just did
Yeah.
such an incredible job.
It really, really did. Yeah. I feel like that's such a unifying franchise in a way. It's enjoyed all over the world in such a
Yeah.
way. Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite genre? If you got more film acting, like more on screen, that you would like to do part of?
I haven't done a lot of comedy. I think I'd actually be a little more adept at it than what I have been branded as. It'd be fun to try that out more. But I'm kind of a drama girl that tends to be just like sort of straight dramas is what I do get cast for. I don't know if it's good. It's good. It kind of just depends. I love a tight script. I'm trying to think of things I've enjoyed recently. In the TV film world, I would say, well, actually, we just watched One Battle After Another. I don't know if you've seen that film. I wasn't expecting it to love it as much as I did, but I found it so beautiful and heartening and timely. And I love that you can kind of invest in those characters in a way that we're so numbed by the news now. It's so desperate that you just don't, you sort of almost can't connect with the real substance of what the news is telling you. You don't know who to trust, but you can weirdly trust a fictional tale that's told that well with like that quality of script, directing, acting. You're like, dang.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just have a lot of appreciation when suddenly something comes out like that. That's just, mind blowing. I'd love to be a part of something like that. And I've been playing Claire Obscure. That's the last video game I was playing. It's so beautiful, and the acting is extraordinary, and the voice work is awesome. And probably like for games, it would be just some version of an RPG, one of the versions of an RPG. And I'm not really much into FPS. Like I don't sort of sit down and do shooter games or MMOs. I'll sit down and I'll do something that's like a bit role play, a bit FPS. That's what I do.
How do you find your voice when you approach a role?
I find it and I lose it and I find it. I find each voice you start with script. I start with something close to myself, and the older that I get, the more I lean on being closer to where I start, like the least amount of effort, because the more effortless something feels, the better it's usually gonna be. So that you're not so worried about the technical stuff. But it kind of just so entirely depends on the character. I really take a lot of information from the script first, though. The script and the character descriptions. And sometimes, unfortunately, because processes can happen very fast, you don't find it until like halfway through what you're doing. It's always a messy process, and you always have a lot to let go of and be like, that's okay. I'm here. I'm offering my voice. So I don't know. It's such a big question because I don't know. Are you guys actors as well? Do you I know you are, Destiny. You said you are. Scott and
Peter,
Jason,
I do more writing.
Yeah, I'm not at all.
Not at all. Just storytelling. You are storytellers yourself. You're podcasters, but also enthusiasts of the entertainment industry. And what are your favorite genres? Out of curiosity, like what do you enjoy?
Horror and comedy for me.
Ooh, horror and comedy. Okay. Yeah.
I kind of am into whatever. It's like you were saying, like if it's a good story, I latch onto it regardless of the genre. I started out with a lot of like science fiction and fantasy growing up, but I've kind of branched out. I'm also kind of getting into theater nowadays. I like to
cool.
rewatch old stuff. I like to go to the local plays and things like that. So I'm
Oh,
trying to
that's
broaden
nice.
my horizons. So.
Yeah, with
Yeah.
that being said, Wicked was one of my favorite movies of the last couple of years.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that one stays with you. That was actually the first Broadway play that I saw a long, long time ago, was Wicked. And I didn't think I was gonna, because I'm not like huge into musicals, even though I've just gone back and watched The Sound of Music and the first part of Newsies, but I wasn't as into that. It was a lot of adolescent boy sweat. And I was like, I can't, not right now. I'm not in the mood right now tonight to watch this. But yeah, Wicked was, God, what year was that? A really long time ago. I was so blown away by that musical, going to New York and seeing it. It just literally I feel like I could have sort of blown back off my chair and out the back wall of the theater by how amazing it was. So there we are. If it's good, it's good.
Did you get lucky enough to see that with Idina and Chris when you saw it on Broadway?
One of them was missing, and it was a wonderful understudy. I think Idina was missing that night. It was somebody else, but whoever it was, I can't remember who it was. I haven't retained the information of. That's embarrassing. But whoever it was like shockingly good, mind-blowingly good.
I love that.
If I could ask you just one more Zelda question.
Absolutely not. What do you think I'm here for?
Was it very different or very similar when like performing for the mainline Zelda games like Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild versus like the Hyrule Warriors games? Like, was it a very different process, or was it more similar than you expected?
Oh, that's a good question, because they're all just like a little bit different, because it's always like a slightly different team. I want to almost say it was more similar than what I would expect, because regardless of timeline, it's very much the same character.
Mm-hmm.
And while you have certain you have certain forms, like certain technical parts that are different, like obviously for a hack slash game, you have to do these really short sound cues, like, forward, like really fast. You maybe like 0.5 seconds, you have to do this sound cue. Not so much like in the main games, it's just a lot more cinematic. But they're kind of similar. And also the director who directed me on Tears of the Kingdom, Hari Lee, wonderful, awesome director, also directed the Zelda voice notes. So the sort of that DLC, the sort of Cell add-on to both of the games, all that sort of encyclopedia knowledge. And then also she directed Age of Imprisonment. So while you do have different teams, you still have a core director that they are trusting to sort of keep that sort of essence and vision alive. And she is very much into, I guess, an empowered Zelda performance, a girthy, grounded Zelda. And we really resonated on that. It was really, they've all been awesome. I love where it went. I love that she brought it there, obviously with Nintendo, like it's a whole team of people who are approving it. So in that regard, you have one director who's worked on 3 different projects with you, the last 3. So they don't feel that different, Yeah.
Okay, well that's cool to know. I'm a big Zelda fan, and I really, really appreciate your performance across all of them. And it is interesting to see like how you it's very nuanced in each individual title. So it was interesting to see how it like would change between the different ones. And I'm a big fan of what you did and how you portrayed the character. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I was happy to get a chance to go back and do it 4 different times, and over a series of like 8 years or whatever. It's like you're like, it's going to change inevitably. But the fact that they allowed and they let the breath of evolution happen with the breath of evolution, I really but you feel that evolution too. You feel the age kind of coming into the characters. I was a fan of that ability to kind of move the performance a little bit too.
Well, Patricia, where can everybody find you online?
Well, right here, right now. Just kidding. Instagram at Summersett _ on there. I've backed off a little bit. Like I post a little bit on, Twitter. I'm not even going to call it X. Screw that platform, really, honestly. But Instagram's the main one, and then my website. If you want updates on appearances, I do that on Instagram, and then also patriciasummersett.com. That's where I'm going to be. So, but I'm better in person, honestly.
Well, is there a message you would like to leave for fans who've grown up watching the games and with your characters before we go?
Oh man. I guess just to sort of reiterate that playing Zelda, I mean, being an actor in general is an amazing gift, but playing Zelda has been an absolutely extraordinary gift that keeps giving. And one of the best parts about it is being able to meet fans, traveling the world and meeting all the people who've connected with those stories over and over again, in so many fascinating ways, seeing the art that comes, the art spin-offs, all the things, the cosplay that comes from it. And yeah, I kind of think it's never really been a better time to be a Zelda fan. You have so many amazing things coming out. Who knows what they've got in store for the future. I'm really happy to be part of the Zelda family. I wish everybody, if they're pursuing acting right now, I know there's a lot of like AI chat and a lot of, it seems like a very bleak environment for a lot of people for a lot of different kinds of careers, but good storytelling speaks for itself, and you start somewhere and you got to focus on the work. If you're thinking of doing that as a career, that always comes first. And when you have that, the other things become easier and possible, and technically possible. The doors open if you focus on that work first. So I guess that's what I would say to people in that regard. And hugs to fans, hugs to people who love Zelda series, right? Like we're all just one big old happy worldwide family, really.
That was really well put. Thank you so much. Yeah,
Thank
especially
you.
the stuff about AI, it can feel very, very bleak. So
it does feel
nice.
so bleak. Yeah. But I'm continuously reminded, and that's why like live theater and stuff like that is a really fun thing to go back to as well. You just have to keep flexing your muscles, and you have to keep connecting and networking with people, and being inspired by stories. So wherever you're finding that, it doesn't need to be in the genre that you're even in. You just got to keep getting out there and continue to just take in great stories.
Mm-hmm.
That's really it. That's what it comes down to, I think.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Patricia. Everybody like, comment, share, subscribe, and we'll talk to you soon.